was very adamant that this was not a new revelation for him. He didn't have an angel showing up and giving him all this wisdom. He had studied wisdom teachings from all over, and this was a synthesis of what he came up to, what made sense to him, and what he could use in his life. Interesting enough, he never wanted to have a church or start a spiritual movement. People just saw how well his life was working. They heard his wisdom, and just quite naturally, within a couple of years, he was speaking to thousands of people. Now, the teachings that he did pull from have been called the perennial teachings. It's like the plants. They seem to come back every year. Throughout history, they seem to show up. Karen Armstrong, a brilliant scholar of religion, she wrote a book called A History of God. It's very good for insomnia if you're having any problems with that. Just keep it by your bedside, and it works pretty good. It is a brilliant book, and it's very, very fascinating. But she hypothesized that anytime humanity suffered a crisis, there was always a spiritual response. She said after the Jews were expelled from Spain, Kabbalah bubbled up. And I think you can make a good argument that after the Christ was a response from the disruption of having the Romans in Israel. Also, when religions become too confining in their doctrine, there comes a liberation. The Christians for 1,000 years preached a veil of tears. For 1,000 years, life was just a veil of tears you had to get through. And then all of a sudden, St. Francis popped up. And he started talking about the beautiful earth, the wonderful sun, the moon and the stars, the beauty of all of it. So it's not surprising that New Thought came from the New England area. And that's also where the Puritans had dominated. If you don't know much about the Puritans, the best description of them were they were a group of people who were always terrified that there was somebody somewhere having a good time. And they wanted to put a stop to it. They wanted to put a stop to it. They were so opposed to any color in life, any kind of color, any kind of pleasure, that they would pull up the flowering wildflowers from around their house. No color, good old dirt was good enough for them. So it's not surprising that in response to that rigidity, the Transcendental Movement came about, and that was a group of people believing in the essential goodness of humanity. That we're not a bunch of people, a bunch of knuckleheads in need of a good, hard lesson, but we have the spark of the divine, that we're here to illuminate the world through our goodness, through our innate goodness and kindness and compassion. And it's about bringing that out, not about stomping out the sin. We don't. That's a mis idea. There's goodness that we can bring about. Now, Dr. Holmes, he studied all of these teachings, and he developed our system. Now, one of his biggest influences, he had several, but one big influence was the Homeric philosophy, a spiritual tradition that goes back to the Greeks, Hermes. Hermes was a legendary figure. He was thought to have been the product of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. Now, if you're kind of wondering about there's the Egyptian god. He's a male entity, but he also has a feminine aspect. So the two of them could have Hermes. In a lot of ways, it's a very modern story. So Hermes came out of this union. And he had several principles that are easy for us to relate to. One of the things he says, as above, so below, as below, so above. There's a correspondence between the universe and the individual. And there are patterns and laws in the cosmos that are reflected in our consciousness and experience. And we want to be able to recognize them and work with them. He talked about a unity of all life. There's an underlying unity and interconnecting aspect of reality. Everything in the universe, from the celestial bodies to the smallest atoms, are believed to be interconnected and part of a unified whole. And the principle that emphasized in this interconnected of the material and spiritual realm is the interdependence of all of life. Everything is working together. And it's been said that this is proven when people are willing to risk their own life to save somebody they don't even know. There's a story about a firefighter in New York. And he was there was a person threatening suicide on the Brooklyn Bridge. And they had harnessed the firefighter to reach out to grab the guy. But before they could get the firefighter properly harnessed, the guy leaped to go to commit suicide. And the firefighter leaped himself and grabbed him and pulled him back to safety. Later, when they were interviewing the firefighter, they said, "You risked your own life. You risked your own life. Why did you risk your life for somebody you didn't even know?" And he said, "I felt that if I didn't save him, I couldn't go on living myself." That's this connection we have. I saw it yesterday. I was working here in the office all day, and I thought I would go get some lunch. I had gone to the grocery store. As I was going into the grocery store, I happened to notice a man I assumed was homeless, but that was my assumption. He had a grocery cart that was full of blankets and things, also a large plastic bottle, half drunk of cheap vodka. You know the kind of vodka that you can use to drink or for antifreeze. That's the kind of vodka he had, and it was half gone. And he had gotten into altercation with the grocery cart. I get in altercations with grocery carts myself, so I had a little bit of sympathy for him. But I went into the store, I did my shopping, realized I had left my wallet here at the office, so I had to come back to the office, go get it. By the time I went back to the store, there were 4 police cars there, and they were dealing with him. And they had him in the back of the car, so I just went ahead and did my shopping. When I came back out, one of the police officers, he was this young guy, he was so fit. He had taken the guy out of the car, and he was talking to him, and he said, "Now I'm going to take the handcuffs off of you." And the guy said, "Well, aren't you afraid I'll run?" And he says, "No," he says, "I'm pretty fast myself, so I'm not worried about that." So he took the handcuffs off of him. Now, here's the thing. He didn't have to do that. The guy was safe. His job was done. He had handled the public disturbance. He had gotten the guy in the back of the car. His job was done. But he had a revelation or a knowing of how uncomfortable it was to be in that back of that police car with your hands buckled behind you. And he had compassion to risk his own job. So if the guy had run away, if there had been more disturbance, it would have looked bad on him. But he took that risk to give a little bit of comfort to someone that he stepped out to do. This is the act of compassion. This is Christ made manifest. When we're willing to step out and we're willing to open ourselves up for the well-being of people around us, this is kindness and compassion, and it's going to come back in his life. And it may even do the homeless guy some good. There's a role for us to play. There's something for us to do. And even me as the observer, there's a role for me to play. First of all, to look for it and to say, wait a minute now, there's something good happening here. It was not such a good situation to begin with. A person sort of out of control, that wasn't a good thing. But out of that, there's come a blessing. And like I said, it's going to bless the officer. It's going to bless the homeless guy. And if I put that into my consciousness, if I'm willing to amplify that through my thinking, my thoughts, and my prayers, it's going to expand. And who knows, it may even give the homeless guy enough conviction to be willing to kick the nasty vodka from a plastic jug. It's by us getting into that stream of consciousness, looking for good, acknowledging it, and then expanding it through our own lives. And the reality of life is that we are in some fashion, we're going to be all three of those positions. We're going to be the guy in the back of the police car. Now, you may say to yourself, oh, Reverend Ken, I'm not going to be homeless. I'm not going to be squilling vodka, cheap vodka out of a plastic jug. But you know, there comes in life a time when we're all going to may have to ask for help. There may come a time when we're all going to have to, give up, surrender a little bit of our authority to get the help we need. I was in the doctor's office. I had actually gone to have some tests done, and it was for my heart, and they're, the kind of serious things people my age start having to do. And I was waiting there, and there was a guy who was a little bit older than me, and you could tell at one time in his youth he had been very fit and strong, and he had been one of those guys who had been like the police officer, a person of authority, but he's having some health issues, and that he needed the help to step up and get on the machine. And I thought to myself, gosh, what a transformation he's had to take from going to the strong person, the person who's, giving the help, now to the person who's receiving the help. And it's good if we're in that place for us to be in a place of gratitude, even when we're having to give up a little bit of our authority or our strength, to be in gratitude that there are people around us willing to help. Hermes says there's a law of cause and effect. This is what we teach. Every action is going to have a corresponding reaction. Our behavior, our intentions have repercussions in the material world and the spiritual realm. And when we invest in negativity and we have it coming at us 24 hours a day, and we're going out and we're spouting fear and anger, how can we expect to have anything but a hellish life? Dr. Holmes says, when we can forgive ourselves and heal our own unconscious sense of rejection, we will never believe in hell, and we will never condemn anyone to it. We won't believe in it because we know it's an impossibility. It's an impossibility. Hermes talked about this power of transformation. The individuals have the potential for transformation and evolution. And through a process of inner thought, we can be on this journey of self-discovery, self-realization, leading to enlightenment. We have it within us. There's a spark of the divine within us, and we're here to illuminate the world. We're here to show a better way. We're here to know a better way, and we can do this. There was a Christian mystic, I think in the 13th century, Meister Eckhart. And he said this spark of the divine is within us. It awaits our recognition and our awakening. We got to let go of the egoic self, he said. And for a long time, I thought the egoic self, that they were talking about what I want, my dreams, my desires, being too focused on that. But dear friends, there's another way you can look at that egoic self, and I think it's one that our culture right now has really hit upon. The egoic self may also mean my fears, my worries, my anxiety. All of that can be the egoic self, and we've got a news media pumping it out 24 hours a day. We've got a pharmaceutical industry making lots of money off of it. We've got politicians, don't even let me get going on them. And we've got spiritual leaders. Yeah, I'll own up to that one. All of them pumping out that there's something to be afraid of, but we have bought the ticket ourselves. We can't just blame them. They've spotted the trend. They're making money on it. We've bought the tickets. we're the ones allowing it to show up in our lives. We have the choice. We can cut off the television or tune the channel to the Hallmark channel. The Hallmark channel 24 hours a day with nothing but romance movies. Better than the news. Now, get the news you want, listen to know what's going on in the world, but you don't have to ingest it 24 hours a day. And you don't have to constantly talk about it to your friends, how horrible things are. There's goodness bubbling up all over. Let us keep an eye, lift our eyes to a better knowing, to a greater dawn, a new possibilities. We're channels of light and love. Eckhart said, we are birthing God into the physical plane. We are birthing Spirit's compassion, Spirit's love. And we do it when we choose love over anger, kindness over fear, and compassion over worry. And you do it even when you don't feel like it. You can't wait till you feel like it to start to be loving. You can't wait till you feel like it to start being generous. You'll never get there. You have to do it. You have to start right where you are in your pain and your hurt and even in your worry, right where you are. You know, one of the stories that I loved, I didn't use it last week in the Easter story, was when Jesus was nailed to the cross. The thief next to him called out for compassion and understanding. I can only imagine what Jesus thought to himself. I've just been nailed to a cross and you want some comfort? You know, here I am. I'm the one suffering. But he stepped out of his pain when he decided to be compassionate. He stepped from his pain into his divinity. And we can do the same when we let go of our fears and choose to be loving. When we let go of our anxiety and choose to be compassionate, we can be the channel of God's love right where we are. It begins in our thought. It begins in our consciousness when we look for good. And if you don't see good, then look somewhere else or change your thought. You know, you can see a police officer arresting a homeless guy, or you can see an act of compassion, perhaps liberating someone from a lifetime of addiction. We are channels of Spirit's possibility. It's what we've come to do. And we will never feel complete until we step up to this. In the Gnostic Gospels, Christ said that there's a challenge for us to step up and be the light of the world. But he said until we do, it will consume us. We are here to be bright, shining lights of God's possibilities here and now. Spirit has faith in you. It called you by name from stardust so you can walk the soil of St. Augustine, so you can be this channel of God's love, so you can be this channel of God's possibilities, so you can be the bright dawning sun of God's love where you are. You can do it. You're powerful. You're wonderful. You have got amazing and miraculous work to do. Spirit is with you, urging you on every step of the way. So link your arms with God and go make a miracle happen, a miracle of love, a miracle of joy, a miracle of compassion. It's within every one of us. This is the truth in your life this morning. It's the truth in mine.